I've built a dozen five-star hotels in some of the most expensive corners of the world, but it was an old, cracked photograph in a moving box that made me question everything I thought I wanted. The photo was buried in a folder labeled Middle School, Class of '03, wedged between yearbook pages I hadn't opened in 2 decades. And there she was. Laughing. Brown curls like she always hated, a chipped front tooth from that bike accident in 5th grade. Madison Green. I was 17 when I realized I was in love with her. I was 38 when I saw her name again, this time on a resume. Let me back up. My name's Nathan Carver. CEO of Carver Resorts. If you've stayed in a luxury suite overlooking the Manhattan skyline or a beachfront villa in Maui with gold-tinted windows and drone-delivered room service, chances are you've stayed in one of mine. My world has been filled with tailored suits, investor meetings, champagne brunches with influencers, and partnerships I sign with a smile and forget by dinner. But last fall, something cracked. I was on a balcony in Miami, 2 in the morning, staring at another city that never slept, another skyline that looked like the last. I felt hollow. That kind of emptiness you can't fill with profit margins or Forbes covers. So, I did something impulsive. I bought a piece of land on the edge of a forest in upstate New York, just outside Rhinebeck. Rolling hills, a quiet lake, and a silence I hadn't heard in years. My team thought I was crazy. A wellness retreat, Nathan. In the middle of nowhere. Exactly. I wanted it to be different. Smaller. Local. Real. So, I made a decision. I would handpick the staff myself. No headhunters, no HR filters. I wanted to meet every cook, cleaner, yoga instructor, gardener. I wanted to know who I was bringing into this new world I was creating. 3 weeks into interviews, I was already regretting it. Most of the applicants were overqualified or underwhelming. Polished on paper, but they didn't feel right. I was about to cancel the afternoon sessions when Dana, my assistant, poked her head in. "One more," she said. No-showed yesterday, but she called and apologized. Sounded sincere. I sighed and motioned her in. And then the door opened. Madison Green walked in like she had nothing to prove. Same hair, now pulled back in a messy knot, a little more sun-kissed than I remembered. She wore a loose blue shirt tucked halfway into khaki pants. Her eyes scanned the room quickly before settling on me. There was a pause. "Nathan," she said. I stood up slowly, unable to hide the grin. "Madison Green. I'll be damned." She laughed, just like she used to. "Wow. You look expensive." I chuckled. "You look exactly the same." She tilted her head. "That better be a compliment." "It is. It always was." We sat. The resume she handed me was printed on cheap paper, slightly creased at the corner. It said she'd worked at 3 diners, ran a yoga studio out of a church basement in Albany, and had recently been laid off from a small wellness center that shut down after a flood. "Why this job?" I asked. She shrugged, thoughtful. "I needed a change. My lease is ending, and my car barely starts. Figured I'd try something new." "Why now?" She looked me dead in the eye. "Because for the first time in a long time, I'm not scared of starting over." There it was. Honesty. In a sea of people rehearsing buzzwords and pretending to smile, Madison was just herself. I hired her on the spot. Assistant wellness director. Modest salary. On-site housing. She accepted without a second's hesitation. The team moved in during the first week of May. Construction was still underway, but the bones of the place were there: cedar cabins, glass wall meditation halls, walking paths through the woods. Madison took to it like she belonged there. She wasn't flashy, didn't try to charm anyone. But people gravitated to her. Even my cynical operations manager started quoting her daily affirmations. And me? I found excuses to bump into her. Brought her coffee most mornings. Asked for input I didn't really need. She saw through it, of course. "You don't have to pretend, Nathan," she told me one night as we walked the lake trail after a long day. "You've always been direct. It was one of the things I liked about you back then." Back when? In 8th grade. When you used to pass me notes folded like ninja stars. I laughed. You read those? Every single one. Still have them somewhere. She turned and smiled at me. You were the only boy who asked me how I was doing instead of what I was wearing. That night, I stood on my cabin porch and looked at the stars, actual stars, not the glow of LED billboards. I hadn't felt this peaceful in years. But of course, peace never lasts long. A week later, a man showed up at the edge of the property. Tall, sunburned, mid-40s. Wore boots caked in mud and a look like he didn't trust anyone. Said he was looking for Madison. She here? He asked me. I paused. Who's asking? I'm her husband. The word husband hit me like a cold wave. I looked down the trail, where Madison was walking with a yoga mat under her arm, laughing with one of the staff. She hadn't mentioned anything about a husband. Not once. And the look in the man's eyes. That wasn't someone visiting his wife with flowers. That was someone who'd come to claim something. I turned back to him, masking the storm that had just exploded in my chest. Wait here, I said. As I walked down the trail toward her, everything inside me started unraveling. Had she lied to me? Played me? Or was there something more beneath the surface, something she hadn't told anyone? I was about to find out. And something told me this was only the beginning. Madison didn't see me at first. She was laughing at something Brad, our massage therapist, had said, the kind of open, unguarded laughter that made you think nothing bad had ever happened to her. But the men at the gate changed that. I didn't call her name. I just kept walking. I think part of me wanted to see if she'd notice the shift in my face, the tension I could feel tightening behind my eyes like a headache coming on fast. When she finally caught my expression, the smile dropped like a curtain. What is it? She asked, her voice already lower, cautious. There's someone here, I said quietly. He says he's your husband. She didn't flinch. She didn't gasp or deny it. She just stood there, still as stone, her hands gripping the rolled yoga mat a little tighter. I was going to tell you, she said, her voice tight but controlled. I swallowed hard. You're married. Was, she corrected. It's complicated. Isn't it always? I muttered, unable to stop the bitterness from creeping in. She turned away from me and started walking fast, heading toward the gate. I followed, not because I wanted to be part of the drama, but because I needed to see for myself how this played out. Who was this guy? And what was she hiding? The man, tall, sun-reddened face, dark green flannel even in the heat, was leaning against a post like he owned the place. When he saw her, he straightened. His face twisted into something between relief and resentment. Mad, he said. Been looking for you. She crossed her arms. You found me, Jake. Jake. Of course his name was Jake. You're not answering your phone. I went by your sister's place. She said you left town. I did. Without saying a word. You don't get to be mad, she said sharply. Not after what you did. I stepped back slightly. This was not my place, and I knew it. But I also couldn't walk away. Jake looked over at me. Who's he? None of your business, she snapped. But Jake wasn't having it. So this is why you ran. You're sleeping with your new boss. I stepped forward. All right. That's enough. He glared at me. I'm talking to my wife. Madison cut in. Ex-wife. The divorce papers were signed 8 months ago. We've been separated for over a year, Jake. His mouth opened, then closed. For a second, the anger left his face and something else settled in, confusion, or maybe desperation. You left without saying goodbye. I had to, she said, her voice shaking. You don't get to rewrite the story now. Jake's eyes flicked between us. You think this guy's gonna take care of you? He's got no clue who you really are. Madison took a step forward. And you never bothered to find out. He stared at her for a beat, then turned and walked off without another word. The silence that followed felt like the pressure right before a thunderstorm. I looked at her, heart still pounding. You want to tell me what that was? She closed her eyes. Not here. Not now. I gave her a long look. Then when? She opened her eyes again, and this time there were tears there, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, stubborn kind you try to blink away before they betray you. Come to my cabin tonight. Around 9. I'll tell you everything. I didn't know what I expected that night. But I didn't expect to feel nervous. Like I was the one being interrogated, like she was about to judge me. Her cabin was at the edge of the property, with a small wooden porch and a view of the woods. The inside was clean but lived in, a few unpacked boxes, a knit blanket draped over the arm of a chair, a single photo frame on the nightstand of a much younger Madison with a golden retriever. She handed me a mug of tea, chamomile, of course, and motioned for me to sit. I met Jake when I was 23, she began, sitting across from me. I'd just dropped out of college. My dad had passed, my mom was slipping into early dementia, and I was lost. He was charming, older, said all the right things. I thought he was stability. She paused, staring into her mug. But stability turned into control. He didn't like when I worked late. Didn't like my friends. Didn't like when I talked about going back to school. He never hit me, but he knew how to break me in other ways. Quiet ways. I felt something sharp tighten in my chest. After a few years, I stopped recognizing myself. I became small. Invisible. Then, one night, I packed a bag, left a note, and drove away. I stayed with my sister, waited tables, taught yoga in church basements. I didn't tell anyone where I went. And the divorce? I asked quietly. He didn't want one, she said. But I filed. He made it messy, but it's done. Official. He's just never accepted it. I leaned back, trying to absorb it all. The woman I'd known in middle school, the one I'd just started to rediscover, had lived a whole lifetime I knew nothing about. I'm not mad, I said, finally. But I wish you'd told me. She looked up. I was going to. But I didn't want to scare you off. Why would it scare me? She gave a sad smile. Because men like you don't usually sign up for women like me. Baggage, broken parts, pasts that don't fit into shiny futures. I set the mug down, leaned forward. You're wrong about that. You're not broken, Madison. And you're not baggage. You're the realest thing I've had in my life in a long time. She didn't respond. Not with words, at least. But her eyes softened. And just when I thought the moment might turn into something else, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Frowned. Then slowly handed it to me. Unknown number. One message. I tapped it open. You think you're safe with him? You're not. I know where you sleep. The blood drained from my face. Madison stared at me, terrified. He wouldn't. But I'd seen the way Jake looked at her. Yes, I said. He would. We doubled security that night, but I didn't sleep. I lay awake in my cabin, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling, listening for every creak, every rustle outside the window. The woods that once felt peaceful now seemed like a trap, too quiet, too dark. Madison's cabin was just down the hill. I wanted to check on her again, but I knew if I showed up a second time she'd see the panic in my eyes. I wasn't just worried about Jake. I was angry. Furious that someone could threaten her and still walk free. By morning, I'd already called in a favor from a friend in Albany, a former cop now doing private security. I gave him Jake's full name and last known address. Find out if he has a record, I said. Anything. I want to know what we're dealing with. He said he'd call me back in a few hours. Meanwhile, the retreat moved on, morning meditations, smoothie bowls, smiling guests. No one had any idea that something dark had slipped into our little paradise. I tried to act normal. Walked the grounds, checked on staff, gave a forced smile to every guest I passed. But something inside me was coiled tight. Then around noon, Madison walked straight into my office, face pale, hands shaking. He was here, she said. I stood up so fast my chair rolled back and hit the wall. What? She nodded. I went to set up the aromatherapy room, and my key didn't work. When I finally got in, the diffuser was smashed. Someone had written something on the mirror. I followed her immediately. The room smelled like burnt lavender. The glass diffuser lay shattered on the floor. And on the fogged mirror, traced in some kind of oil, were 4 words. You can't erase me. I stared at it in silence, fists clenched. Call the police, I said. But she touched my arm. And tell them what? That my ex-husband came into a public space and broke a diffuser. She was right. Without cameras in that room or evidence of forced entry, we had nothing. This is harassment, I snapped. And it's going to escalate. She sat down slowly on the bench by the window. I thought I was done running, she whispered. I sat beside her, struggling to keep my voice steady. You're not running anymore, Madison. Not this time. I'm not going to let him ruin what you're building here. She looked at me, tired. You're not responsible for me. I took her hand. I know. But I care about you anyway. We sat in silence for a moment, until my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Nate Carver. Speaking. This is Detective Neil Morgan. A friend of yours, Ron Mercer, forwarded me your request. I stepped outside. Yeah. Well, I dug into your guy. Jacob Harlan Green. Born in Syracuse, 1979. Former construction worker. 3 prior arrests, 2 for bar fights, 1 for criminal trespassing. Nothing recent, though. And nothing with a formal conviction. Still, I said, doesn't paint a great picture. No, it doesn't. He's volatile. And his last known address? He hasn't lived there in over 6 months. Registered vehicle hasn't been insured in nearly a year. So he's off the grid. Essentially. Look, Mr. Carver, I don't know what this man means to your employee, but she should file a restraining order. Get something on the record. Otherwise, guys like him just keep circling. Thanks, detective. I appreciate it. I hung up and stared into the woods. It was quiet again. But this time, it didn't feel peaceful, it felt like someone was watching. That night, I insisted Madison stay in one of the main lodge suites, where the front desk was always staffed and security walked the halls. She resisted, but I wouldn't back down. She finally agreed on one condition, that I didn't make her feel like a victim. I'm not a damsel, Nathan, she said, looking me straight in the eye. Don't treat me like one. I nodded. Then let me treat you like someone I care about. That seemed to soften her, just a little. We had dinner in the staff lounge, just soup and salad, but it felt heavier, like we were eating under a shadow. I kept waiting for her to break, to cry or panic. But she never did. She was quiet. Focused. But I could see it in her hands, the way she gripped her spoon too tightly, the way she flinched at the sound of the back door closing. Later that evening, around 10, I got a call from our night manager. There's something wrong with the gate, she said. The keypad's been ripped out. Looks like someone forced it open. My blood ran cold. Is anyone out there? I asked. Not that I can see. Security's checking the perimeter now. I ran out of my office and straight to the suite where Madison was staying. She answered on the second knock. Stay inside, I said. Lock the door behind me. What happened? I told her, quickly, calmly, but she didn't panic. She just nodded, walked to the desk, and pulled something out of her duffel bag. A small pepper spray canister. Always kept one, she said. Just in case. Security swept the grounds. No one found anything, no footprints, no sign of a car. But when I checked the maintenance camera near the utility path, I saw it. A figure, tall, wearing a hood, slipping through the trees. He didn't go near the main building. He went to the staff cabins. Specifically, to hers. And he stood there. For almost 5 minutes. Just staring at the door. I watched the footage over and over. He didn't move. Didn't knock. Didn't try to break in. He just stood there, like he was remembering something, or waiting. And then, just before he turned and disappeared into the woods, he did something that made my skin crawl. He took something out of his pocket. A small item. Something white. And placed it on the doormat. Security retrieved it the next morning. It was a photo. A younger Madison. On a beach. Smiling in a sundress. On the back, in thick black ink. "You're still mine." I didn't sleep that night. Neither did she. We sat on the porch of the lodge in silence, sipping coffee as the sun rose over the lake. I looked at her, at the strength she was holding onto by her fingertips, and realized something I hadn't fully accepted until now. This wasn't about her past anymore. This was about her future. And I was going to protect it. Even if it meant doing something I promised myself I'd never do again. Getting personally involved. Because this wasn't just about a job anymore. This was personal. The morning after the photo appeared on Madison's doormat, something in her changed. Not fear exactly, something harder, colder. She got up early, braided her hair tight, dressed in all black, and worked through the breakfast rush like nothing happened. She didn't flinch when guests complained the chia pudding was too warm. She didn't even blink when one of the yoga instructors called in sick. But I saw it. The way she avoided the windows. The way she kept checking her phone even when there were no new messages. She was waiting. So was I. I'd already sent the photo to my friend at the private security firm. He ran it through an image matching system to see if Jake had posted anything similar online. While I waited for results, I stayed close to Madison, not obviously, but enough to feel like I could intervene if something happened. Around noon, the tension finally snapped, just not in the way I expected. I was restocking towels in the front lobby when one of our guests, a middle-aged woman from Florida who insisted on being called Mimi, stopped suddenly in the hallway and stared at Madison like she'd seen a ghost. "You," Mimi whispered. Madison froze. "Sorry." Mimi stepped closer. "I know you. You were in the news, a few years ago. Weren't you in that thing with the church? That scandal in Syracuse?" The hallway went dead silent. Madison didn't move. Didn't blink. I stepped forward. "Is there a problem?" I asked, too sharply. Mimi looked at me like I'd insulted her chihuahua. No problem. I just have an excellent memory for faces. My sister works at Channel 9 upstate. I remember a segment about a woman who disappeared after a scandal with the youth pastor." "That's enough," I said, louder this time. Madison had already turned and walked away. I followed her around the corner, where she stood gripping the counter near the juice bar, her knuckles white. "Is it true?" I asked softly. "Were you part of that story?" She didn't answer. "Madison." She finally looked at me. "You said you wanted the truth. Well, here it is." And just like that, she told me everything. When she was 22, she'd worked as an assistant at a large church in Syracuse, the kind with a cafe, a bookstore, and a multi-million-dollar renovation budget. The youth pastor, a charismatic, married man in his mid-30s, started mentoring her. He told her she had leadership potential. That she was spiritually mature. And then, after months of texts and long prayer walks, he kissed her. Things spiraled. He told her he loved her. Promised he'd leave his wife. Told the church she was struggling emotionally when people started asking questions. When the affair came out, he denied everything. Claimed she'd made it up. That she was mentally unstable and obsessed with him. The church fired her. She lost her apartment, her reputation, her entire sense of reality. "It took me 2 years to feel like I could breathe again," she said. "That's when I met Jake. I thought he was different. And you know how that ended." I didn't speak for a long moment. My hands trembled just slightly as I rested them on the counter. "You weren't the villain in that story," I said. "Try telling that to everyone who watched it on local news for 2 weeks. And Jake, did he know about that?" She nodded. "He threw it in my face every time we argued. Said I ruined his chances at any kind of social life. That no one wanted to be around a woman with a reputation." My jaw tightened. "He's not just obsessed. He's dangerous." Before she could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my security contact. "Got a match. Photo was uploaded 2 days ago to a private Reddit account." Guess who it belongs to? Jake's sister. I called him immediately. She uploaded it. I asked. Yeah. The account's only posted 5 things in the past year. All photos of Madison. Different years, different places. He's having her do the dirty work, staying off-grid while using her account to keep tabs. This isn't just stalking, Nathan. This is coordinated. Can we prove that? Not unless she confesses. But it's enough for a restraining order. Possibly even a civil suit if Madison wants to pursue it. I hung up and walked straight to her. You're not doing this alone anymore, I said. He's using his sister to watch you. This is bigger than harassment now. It's a pattern. It's targeted. And I'm done playing defense. She looked at me for a long moment. Then nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Let's fight back. The next 48 hours moved fast. With my legal team's help, we filed a harassment report and started the paperwork for a restraining order. Madison finally told her sister everything, not just about Jake, but about the incident with the church. To her surprise, her sister believed her. Even offered to let her stay with them in Brooklyn if things escalated. But Madison didn't want to leave. This is the first place I've built something for myself, she said. I'm not running again. We increased our security patrols. Added locks to all cabins. Installed motion sensor lights along the back trail. Things seemed to settle, until Thursday night. I was locking up the pool house around 11 p.m. when I saw something strange, a figure crouched behind one of the decorative stone walls near the yoga pavilion. I stepped closer. Quiet. Careful. Then I saw it, a flash of a phone screen lighting up a face. Jake. He hadn't shaved in days. His eyes were wild, sunken. He looked like a man on the edge. Jake, I said. It's over. I called the cops. He turned to me, face twitching. You don't know anything about her. I know enough. She lied to you, he spat. She lies to everyone. That's what she does. She ruins people. You'll see. You need help, I said. But you're not going to get it here. Sirens wailed in the distance, fast, angry. I'd called as soon as I saw him. Jake looked one last time toward Madison's cabin, then darted into the woods. He didn't make it far. The police tackled him near the gate. They found a hunting knife in his backpack. He's being held now, awaiting a restraining order hearing and psychiatric evaluation. Madison didn't cry when I told her. She just sat down, pulled a blanket over her lap, and stared at the lake for a long time. Then she turned to me and said something I'll never forget. I didn't think I deserved peace. I thought running and hiding was what women like me did. But maybe I'm allowed to stay. I sat beside her. Took her hand. Madison, I said, you don't just deserve peace. You deserve to finally exhale. She didn't answer. She just leaned her head on my shoulder. And for the first time since she arrived, she closed her eyes. And slept. You'd think that after someone gets arrested lurking around your resort with a hunting knife, things would quiet down. They didn't. Jake was gone, for now, but the damage he'd left behind clung to the air like smoke. Madison went back to work, but something in her had shifted again. She smiled less. Stayed on task. Avoided small talk. She wasn't shutting down exactly, more like bracing herself. As for me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something didn't add up. The way Jake found her here. The way he always seemed 2 steps ahead, from the photo, to the diffuser incident, to knowing her exact cabin. Even with his sister's Reddit account being used to upload old photos, I couldn't ignore one gnawing thought. He had help. A week passed. Jake was officially held pending a psychiatric review, and Madison's restraining order was granted. Still, she kept her curtains closed and her door locked at night. It was a Thursday morning when it happened, something small, but telling. One of the kitchen staff, Alexis, came into my office looking uneasy. "You've got a minute?" she asked. "Of course. Everything okay?" "Depends," she said, sitting down. I wasn't going to say anything, but now, well, it's eating at me. I leaned forward. Go on. You remember last week, when Madison's diffuser got smashed and someone wrote on the mirror? Yeah. Well, that day I saw someone coming out of the aromatherapy room right before she found the message. I didn't think much of it at the time. Thought maybe it was someone doing repairs or something. Who was it? She hesitated. Nina. My heart sank. Nina. My head of guest experience. Polished. Professional. Smart. She'd helped me launch the property. And she was close with Madison, at least, I thought she was. Are you sure? I asked. Alexis nodded. Positive. She looked startled when she saw me. Said she was checking humidity levels. Which made no sense. We didn't use that system in that room. I thanked Alexis and walked slowly to the staff lounge where Nina was reviewing a clipboard. Hey, I said casually. Got a minute? She smiled. Of course. What's up? I motioned her toward my office. The second we were alone, her smile dropped. You think I had something to do with that photo, she said. I didn't expect her to cut to it so fast. I think someone gave Jake information, I said. Someone who knew Madison's schedule. Her habits. Her cabin assignment. Her jaw clenched. That's a hell of an accusation. I haven't accused anyone yet. But you're circling, she said coolly. I'm asking questions. The kind you ask when your staff is being stalked. Her eyes didn't waver. Look, Nathan. I've done everything for this retreat. Stayed late, covered shifts, put out fires you didn't even know existed. And now because your ex-classmate has some psycho in her life, I'm a suspect. I paused. There was something in the way she said that. Ex-classmate, I repeated. Why say it like that? She crossed her arms. Because this place changed the minute she walked in. You've bent every rule for her. Promoted her without vetting. Covered for her when guests recognized her from the news. Nina. She's a liability, Nathan. There it was. I leaned back. Did you give Jake her photo? Her nostrils flared. No. But you knew about him. About her past. She didn't answer. You didn't think I deserved to know? I asked. She stood up. You were blinded from day one. This place was supposed to be about peace, healing, serenity. Not drama. Nina, we have staff who are recovering from addiction, divorce, burnout. Everyone has a story. Not everyone's story invites a violent man into the woods with a weapon. That silenced the room. I didn't tell him where she was, she said finally. But I didn't stop it either. I swallowed. What does that mean? I saw his messages on her tablet. She left it charging in the staff room once. He'd been texting her. She wasn't answering. I figured if she wouldn't reply, maybe she deserved to deal with the fallout. So I left a comment on one of her sister's public Facebook posts, something vague, something only he would recognize. You let him know she was here. She didn't deny it. I didn't think he'd show up. I wanted her to feel consequences. I stared at her, stunned. You're done here, I said quietly. Clean out your things. HR will process your final check. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I waited until the next morning to tell Madison. She sat quietly, listening. No tears. No yelling. Just stillness. She always smiled at me, she said finally. Asked about my tea preferences. Told me my perfume was too strong, nicely, though. I think it was jealousy, I said. Control. Maybe both. Madison nodded. You're sure she told him? I can't prove she was in direct contact. But she all but admitted to signaling him through social media. She wanted me scared. She succeeded. Madison stood, walked to the window. What do we do now? I stood beside her. We keep going. We run the retreat. We show people that this place can still be what we promised. She turned to me, eyes tired but focused. You're not afraid anymore. I am, I said. But I'm not backing down. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I reached for her hand. I can't be neutral anymore, Madison. Not after all this. I care about you. More than I should, maybe. But I do. She didn't pull away. You've seen every part of me I hate, she whispered. And you're still here. I'm not going anywhere. Outside, the breeze rustled the leaves. A guest laughed in the distance. It felt like the first normal moment in weeks. We stood there for a long time. Not as boss and employee. Not even as old classmates. But as two people, bruised, cautious, and finally ready to stop running. For a few days, it really felt like we'd turned a corner. The guests were smiling again. Madison and I slipped into a quiet rhythm, shared coffees in the early morning, late-night walks along the trail lit only by moonlight and cautious hope. Her laughter, once scarce, started showing up in small bursts, during a guest cooking class, while pruning the garden, or when I mispronounced bougainvillea for the 5th time. I let myself believe we might finally be okay. Until the letter arrived. It was a Friday morning, and I'd just come back from a supplier run into town. As I unloaded the crates of organic produce in the kitchen, Maria, our receptionist, walked in holding a small cream-colored envelope. It was left at the front gate, she said. No postage. Just addressed to you. I took it, eyebrows raised. No return address. None. But it's not handwritten. Looks like a typewriter. The paper was thick, expensive. The kind that didn't bend easily, the kind you'd use if you wanted to make something feel official. I opened it carefully. Inside, a single sheet, typed in bold, black ink. You don't know what she's capable of. But you will. Sooner than you think. No signature. No contact info. Nothing else. Just that chilling sentence. My stomach tightened. I read it again. Then a third time. But it didn't change. Still the same cold threat, but twisted. Not aimed at Madison this time. Aimed at me. I showed it to Madison immediately. She didn't say anything at first. Just ran her fingers over the edge of the page like she was trying to read something between the lines. Then, softly, that's his wording. That's how Jake talks. Always making it about you not seeing the full picture. Always dangling something just out of reach. You think he sent this? She shook her head. Not directly. He's in custody. But he might have planned it. Or, asked someone. Someone like Nina. She's too bitter to be subtle, Madison said. She'd sign her name in red lipstick. That made me crack a half smile. But it didn't last. We were still being watched. Still being played. And if Jake had someone on the outside pulling strings, we weren't just dealing with an obsessed ex anymore. We were in the middle of something bigger. I called my security contact again. He took the letter for fingerprint analysis and checked the resort's security tapes from the past 48 hours. Nothing. No one outside the gate. No delivery driver who didn't belong. Whoever dropped the letter off had either worn gloves, avoided cameras, or both. Madison, meanwhile, took a different approach. She started pulling out her old journals, trying to remember names, people from her past who might have sided with Jake. Mutual friends. Former church members. She wrote a list of 9 names. 7 of them were dead ends. But the 8th was someone I hadn't expected. Her name was Kendra Blythe. She'd been Madison's roommate for 3 years in Syracuse. A friend, at least at first. Then, during the fallout with the church scandal, Kendra had testified against Madison in a closed internal meeting, repeating rumors that Madison had manipulated the youth pastor and craved attention. Kendra had also dated Jake briefly after Madison moved out of town. They broke up fast, Madison said. But she always had this smug, protective attitude toward him. Like he was the one who got hurt. I looked up Kendra online. She was now living in a town just 20 miles from our retreat, working as a freelance wellness blogger. She'd written several posts about emotional predators, narcissists in therapy circles, and people who fake healing to get sympathy. My chest went cold reading one particular entry. Never trust a woman who builds her story on being the victim. Especially if she shows up in your life when things are going well. The post was dated the day after Madison started working here. Do you want me to talk to her? I asked. No, Madison said. If we confront her, she'll twist it. Post about it. Say I tracked her down. She's more dangerous online than Jake ever was in person. She was right. This wasn't about confrontation. It was about containment. But we had to do something. So we sent the blog entries and the letter to our legal team. We didn't have enough for a formal accusation, but it helped build a pattern, a case for escalation if things got worse. Unfortunately, they did. It was Sunday morning, just after breakfast, when one of the guests came to the front desk shaking. There's a woman outside, she said. She was pacing near the parking lot. When I asked if she needed help, she said something about exposing the liar inside. I bolted outside. There she was. Tall, lean, wearing oversized sunglasses and holding her phone out like she was filming for social media. Kendra Blythe. Hi, Kendra, I said evenly. You're not welcome here. She smirked. Freedom of movement. Public parking lot. This is private property. And you're disturbing my guests. She turned the phone toward herself. Hey, followers. Just wanted you to know, I'm standing outside a luxury resort where a known manipulator is hiding out under a new name. Protect your energy, everyone. Trust your intuition. I stepped closer. If you don't leave now, I'm calling the police. She smiled wider. Do it. Then I'll post about you, the rich hotel owner protecting abusers. We'll see how your investors feel about that. That one hit harder than I wanted to admit. But I wasn't backing down. You're not the first person to mistake cruelty for honesty, I said. But you are the first to do it on camera in a parking lot with last year's sunglasses. That wiped the smirk off her face. She stormed back to her car, muttering something about lawyers. I called the sheriff immediately. Filed a trespassing report. And added her to our internal watch list. But it wasn't enough. That night, Madison's car was keyed. 4 deep scratches along the passenger side, like someone had taken their time. She didn't cry. She just walked into my office, sat down, and said, "Maybe I'm cursed." "You're not cursed," I said. "You're just finally being seen." She looked at me. Seen as what? As someone worth fearing. We moved her into room 214, the suite closest to mine. Not because she needed protection, but because I needed to be able to hear her voice if something went wrong. We upgraded our cameras. Changed our locks. Even alerted guests that security patrols would be more frequent for a while. And still. The letter stayed with me. You don't know what she's capable of. It wasn't just a warning. It was a threat wrapped in gaslight. Designed to make me question everything. But I didn't. Not anymore. I believed her. Even when I woke up 2 nights later to the sound of glass shattering, and found room 214's window broken, a stone lying on the floor beneath a new note. This one wasn't typed. It was scrawled in Sharpie, furious and frantic. She deserves to lose everything. And so do you. I didn't sleep the night the rock came through the window. Madison didn't either. We sat together in the broken silence, her knees pulled to her chest, my hands shaking as I cleaned up the glass. I wanted to call someone, the police, security, God, but I knew this wasn't about catching someone anymore. It was about finishing something. I looked at the note again. She deserves to lose everything. And so do you. That wasn't Jake's voice. It wasn't Kendra's either. Too emotional. Too personal. This was written by someone who'd been watching, stewing in their own bitterness. Someone closer than we'd imagined. I stared out the shattered window at the line of trees that bordered the property. Then it hit me. There was one person who'd been here since the beginning. Who knew every inch of the grounds. Who had access to every key, every schedule, every back door. Matt. Our head groundskeeper. Quiet. Friendly. Lived in the staff cabin near the stables. The kind of guy you almost forget is there, which made him perfect if someone wanted to hide in plain sight. I didn't tell Madison right away. I just said I was going to double-check the perimeter. I found Matt behind the equipment shed, smoking a cigarette like he always did late at night. He didn't flinch when he saw me. "Can't sleep?" he asked, exhaling. "No. You?" He smiled. "Too much adrenaline. Everyone's on edge since that Jake guy." I watched him carefully. "You know, I was thinking. That window in 214, it's too far from the main road for a random drive-by. And we upgraded the fence line a week ago." He nodded slowly. "Yeah. We did. But whoever threw that rock, they knew exactly which room she was in. Which side of the building to hit." He didn't blink. "Just tapped ash off the edge of the shed." "So what are you saying, Nathan?" "I'm saying someone here did it." Silence. "Then, you think it was me?" "I think you knew Jake." Still no reaction. "I think maybe you met him once, when he came snooping around," I said. "Maybe he paid you. Maybe you just liked the idea of being part of something bigger than mowing lawns." He let out a slow, humorless laugh. "I didn't do it for him," he said. "I did it for me." There it was. "I was here before the granite countertops and yoga decks," he said. "When this place was just dirt and blueprints. I dug those foundations myself. You know what you called me back then?" I said nothing. "The help." Not to my face, but I heard it. "You and your partner at the time, always talking like this retreat would elevate the unwashed. Like we were scenery." "I never." "You didn't have to say it. You built this place like a kingdom. Then you brought her in, this woman with a scandal attached to her like a tattoo, and gave her the one thing you never gave me, respect." His voice cracked. "She walks in with her secrets, her drama, and you protect her. Meanwhile, I'm sweating bullets, breaking my back, and I'm invisible." I swallowed hard. "So you thought what, you'd scare her away?" "I wanted her gone," he said. "Thought if she cracked under pressure, you'd finally see what kind of person she was. But she didn't crack. She kept smiling. Even after the diffuser. The photo. The damn rock. You did all of it." He nodded once. "No shame. The messages. The diffuser. The window. Even told Jake where to find her. I left a flyer in a downtown coffee shop, circled the retreat address. No name. Just enough. Why? Because people like her always land on their feet. They survive scandals. They survive men like Jake. And the rest of us. We just vanish." I felt my fists clench. But I didn't swing. I didn't yell. Instead, I said one word, "Leave." He blinked. "What?" "You're done. Walk away now and I won't press charges." "You don't scare me, Nathan." "Good," I said. "But a trespass notice and surveillance footage will. I've already recorded this conversation. You're not smarter than the system. You're just louder." For a second, I thought he might lunge at me. But he didn't. He flicked his cigarette into the dirt and walked. The next morning, I told Madison everything. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just said, "I knew it was someone close." "You okay?" She nodded. Stronger than yesterday. And somehow, I believed her. We filed the final reports. Matt was legally barred from stepping foot on the property again. Security was tightened. The fall guests arrived 2 days later, couples in search of color-changing leaves, writers on personal retreats, families trying to heal. Life, somehow, resumed. Madison stayed in room 214. I stayed next door. And one night, as the first frost kissed the windows, I brought her a cup of tea, sat on her balcony, and asked her the question I hadn't dared to until now. "What do you want next?" She looked up from her notebook. "In life. In everything." She smiled, not the brittle, forced smile I used to see. But a soft one. A true one. "I want to stop waiting for someone to hurt me." I nodded. "And if they try?" Her eyes found mine. I'll be ready. Because I'm not alone anymore. There was no dramatic kiss. No slow piano swell. Just two people in silence, watching the trees. A woman once hunted, now whole. A man once detached, now finally present. And somewhere deep inside, a shared understanding. That love wasn't always born from comfort. Sometimes, it was forged through fear, and survived everything. Even the view from room 214.